Hello, everybody, and welcome to GoIndieNow's live panel discussion for the month of June. I am your host, Joe Compton, and we are here with an awesome panel tonight, and we're going to discuss how to write effective ad copy for your books, concerning book blurbs, good advertising methods, decent ad copy, effective ad copy, I should mention, and things of that nature. So we'll have the panel introduce themselves. And like I said, I'm Joe Compton. And let's start from my immediate left, which would be Mr. Andy Peliquin.
Hey guys, I am Andy Peliquin, dark fantasy author of the Last View Solarian Queen of Thieves series. I am a perfectionist, so my blurbs go through about 100 revisions before I feel satisfied with them. So it's the process that I hate so much, like most authors, but it's one that I've sort of gotten a bit better at, and I'm glad that I can share my 2 cents on it.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy. We look forward to that. All right, Christy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Christy Stratus. I write dark psychological historical fiction, and I actually have some experiences to share with you of what not to do that didn't work for me. So hopefully that will be just as valuable to you. And I'm really excited to hear what everyone else has to say, too, because we've got some real kings and queens of marketing here. So it's going to be really awesome.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Christy. I would include yourself amongst that. All right, Heidi, go ahead.
Hello, I am Heidi Angel, and I am a soon-to-be 9-book published author, and I'm excited to meet and talk about this because I've been doing this from the beginning.
Awesome. All right, Josh.
Hey everyone, my name is Joshua Robertson. I'm a fantasy author, the author of Thrice 9 Legends saga, as well as the Legacy series, and very excited to be here tonight, Joe, and talk about blurbs. I think they're probably one of the most frightening things for all of us authors, as well as, of course, talking about some other marketing techniques for how to get your information out there to folks.
Yes, sir. Let's scare some folks tonight. Kevin, how about yourself?
Sure. My name is Kevin J. Kessler. I'm a fantasy action adventure author of the ongoing Rocinante series. Still fairly new as an author. I've got 2 full-length novels out and a novella. I've been a marketing professional in my career for the last like 14 years, since I was 18, and but I'm still very new to book marketing. So it's kind of like I'm learning as I'm going with this. So hopefully, I'll learn something here tonight as well.
Awesome. Thank you, sir. Christina.
Hi guys, I'm Christina Rienzi. I am a multi-genre suspense author. I have 5 books out currently, a short story coming out in the fall as part of an anthology, and 2 books that I'm currently cleaning up and polishing to get out into the world. A huge fan of the back cover blurb. I use it in some unique ways, so I'm excited to have a conversation and absolutely learn something and share what I do with my marketing tools for my books.
Awesome. So let's give everybody some background on how you guys get started in terms of thinking about from the very beginning what you're going to do. So in your mind, what is more important to answer when you get started? Who am I writing for, or how can I gear this toward my target audience? And why? Give us a reason why you're choosing the question to ask yourself. Why you choose that question to answer first.
Is this when writing the book or when writing the blurb?
Yeah, when writing the book or blurb, or when you're first getting started. If you write the blurb first, then that. But if you're conceptualizing your book and thinking about it, what are you thinking about? Are you thinking about who you're writing for, or how you can hit a target audience when you're writing it?
I'll answer first if that's okay. For me, I write my blurb before I write my book because that is, for me, the first step in I'm not a pantser, unlike some people. I do a lot of plotting, and so I write the blurb before I write anything in the story. And how I decide to write the book will depend on whether it's the first book in the series or whether it's a new series. So if I already have the series, I have to make sure that the book fits in the genre that's already been established. I don't want to genre hop. If it's new, I go with where the story is going. I don't write to market.
I'm the opposite of Heidi. I will write my book first. And then, like, I'll go into every book knowing what I'm going to write, the story I want to tell, the question I want to answer, the theme of the book. But then as the book takes form, I'm also a total plotter. I've got, thousands of words of notes. But then certain themes become more important than others through the writing, through the story that the characters tell. And by the time I get to the blurb, often the thrust of the story might have changed a little bit. So I like to have the book mostly finished and actually sitting with the editor, going through all of the drafts, the revisions, the feedback, and the beta readers and all of that, so that by the time I write the blurb, I know exactly what the book is about instead of having to adjust it because I tweaked with some theme or something that I had to fix in the book.
So Joe, I don't know if this is exactly where your question is going. I actually used to be like Andy and I wrote the blurb first, and now I'm like Heidi, or I was like Andy and I didn't write the blurb first, I wrote the book, but now I'm like Heidi and I write the blurb first. But in looking at your question, I hear this question a lot on whether or not you write for yourself or you write for your audience and how you direct your book and how you put it together. I've oftentimes heard from authors that it's best to look at what's trending and write a book that's going to hit the market so that people are well accepting of it and that it can sell well and that you can make money and all those great things. But at the other hand, I hear authors say, don't worry about what other people want, just write what you love. And although I think that it's probably wise to write what's popular on the market, I typically write what I love and hope that other people love it as well. I'm not sure if that's what your question was asking exactly, but that's what I was hearing.
I think I can add to that as well. I'm kind of the same as Josh in that regard, in that I kind of think of myself as kind of my target audience as well, because you have to be a fan of what you're writing. I mean, if you hate the thing that you're known for, you're Billy Joel playing Piano Man and like grimacing your way through it. But I think that it's a lot. Like my target audience is very much like people like myself, geeky millennials, like in their 20s or 30s or even in their teens. But I know, like Andy said, he has like thousands of words of notes. I take no notes. Like I just kind of know, I know where we have to start. I know where we have to end up. And then I kind of let the characters drive after that. And as my own target audience, I kind of gauge my own reactions on the things that happens to be able to kind of tailor fit that to my audience, because I'm a fan of the series as well. So like a character will do something and I'll be like, oh, no way, that was awesome. Like, or, like I'll have a actual emotional reaction to something. And I like to gauge my audience that way because I am part of my audience.
And just to jump in with a quick response. So Heidi and Andy, I'm a little bit of both. I do my blurb first initially just to get a sense of what I think the story is going to be. I write my story. I do a lot of plotting, a little bit of pantsing, so I let the story guide me. But at the end, I do go back to that blurb and I clean it up and I tweak it. I usually have a pretty good idea of what I want the story to be. But in terms of who I write it for, I'm not looking to market per se, although I probably should be. I think I'm looking for my ideal reader. And because I write suspense, I want to have an emotion come through in my stories as well as my blurb. So I'm looking for that key emotion of a little bit of intrigue, fear, and just a question of what happens next and wanting to know. I think that's what all authors want. But certainly with suspense, I want to make sure that comes out loud and clear in my blurb. So I'm going for the emotion, and whatever I can do to tweak the words so that emotion comes out is how I get to my blurb.
Yeah, for me,
Absolutely. And I do. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Christy.
sorry, Heidi. Yeah, for me, I always pants, almost always pants. And so I write whatever I write, and along the way I get excited and I'll write like a temporary blurb that fits it at that moment. And then I go along and I finally finish the book and I end up changing the blurb entirely, but I always like seeing what I started out with versus what it turned into. And what I did with my first book, Anatomy of Darkened Heart, is I finished the book and then I thought, okay, well, what genre is this? Because at first I started with something a little bit different, ended up with, this whole other book that I didn't quite expect. And, when I looked at the genre, I was sort of like, okay, well, if I just say historical fiction, it's going to be the wrong impression. If I just say psychological, wrong impression, just dark. So I put them together, and that's how I ended up with dark psychological historical fiction. Yeah, it doesn't exist in Amazon, but it is a thing that starts conversations when I say it, like, to people. And so I do fit the blurb afterwards, like some other people have said.
Yeah, I was going to say, even though I write mine before because it's a part of that creative process, I go where the story goes. I do have a roadmap, and sometimes my characters decide to go off-road, and sometimes that'll change. So I will adjust the blurb at the end, but I like to start with that to get me going. And I also find that for me, my first couple books, I didn't do that. I wrote it at the end because I didn't originally plan on self-publishing. And I didn't think I was going to have to do that. And then it was so hard to get all of that 80,000 word story to fit into 2 paragraphs. And so I learned that for my well-being, I write it first and then I tweak it.
So the reason that I asked that question is simply to understand where the mindsets are when we're starting our process, but also because the blurb is a form of marketing. You often hear people saying that your blurb is like your trailer to your book. People pick that up, they read that, and they look at it and they say, hey, that's something I want to read. That entices me to read it. So is that you guys' general approach to the blurb, or are you trying to do something differently with it?
Well, I think for me, the blurb does end up being a marketing piece, but it starts off as a roadmap, kind of like what Christy's talking about and Heidi's talking about. Is initially it's like the most basic outline of what the story is and what the story is that I'm going to be telling, and that's what I use it for. That's why I write the blurb first. Now it gives me that initial outline in order to tell the story, and then later, like they were saying too, is I'll tweak it at the end, and maybe I'll make some adjustments and change it if the story has changed a little bit and it becomes a marketing piece. But initially I think it's a roadmap.
I kind of see it as almost like a trailer, almost kind of cinematically. To me, the blurb is kind of, and the reason I write the blurb last, because the term you're all using is pantsing, which I had never heard before, being the greenhorn in the room, but I love that term now. I guess because I need to know like the complete story before I write the blurb, so I'll write the blurb at the end. But I see the blurb almost like back in the day when movie trailers all had like the epic announcer voice guy, like, in a world, like, like that. To me, that's the blurb. Like that is, with just minus a visual aid, the blurb is so important because it's kind of that epic voiceover that's going to make people be like, ooh, okay, I want to definitely take a look at that.
For me, with the blurb, I'm trying to show, I agree with that, definitely, Kevin. I'm definitely trying to show the uniqueness of my book. So I've definitely seen a lot of blurbs that, in my opinion, give too much away. And if it gives away enough that by the time I read the end of the blurb, I already know what's going to happen, for me, I'm not interested anymore because I want something where I don't know what's going to happen. But some people want to know, like they want to know as much as they can and then go into it. So it is different for everyone, and it probably differs per genre. But for the kind of book that I'm writing, I really want to show how my book is different. I want it to be sort of mysterious. I'm always worried about spoilers, like big time. So I might even give too little away. But in that way, I'm hoping that it's going to be mysterious and, suits the genre, but makes you sort of wonder, okay, so I haven't heard that before. What's going to happen? That's what I'm aiming for.
For me, because I am a multi-genre author as well as multi-book, I always look at what is popular at the time that I'm crafting it to fit around that. So sometimes it's okay. We were just talking about this in the chat over on YouTube, but I like to end mine with a question because I write urban fantasy and paranormal suspense thrillers. And so you can ask questions when you have suspense thrillers. But when I tried to do that with my House School series, which is a contemporary piece, when I tested it with my betas, they didn't like it because that's not how you do it in contemporary. So I had to take it out. So it's really key to look at what other top sellers are doing in your genre and see how that works, and then try to, obviously you don't want it to be exactly the same, but you want to try and craft it similar so that you're getting the right audience when they read it. I think crafting it right is just as important as picking the right categories.
Anybody else have anything they want to add to that?
I was just going to jump in and say that I agree with both Christy and Heidi. And I think that there's confusion because when you're in the world of traditional publishing, you have to do a synopsis, and that, everyone knows what that is. You're basically summarizing your book, right? And when you're doing a synopsis, you have to tell everything. And so there is that need to know everything that happens in the book if you're trying to pitch it to an agent or go to a publisher. Well, when you're using that for a reader and you're doing it, certainly when you're doing it on your own, but even when you're doing it in regular, traditional publishing, that blurb is that hook. It's the hook of the story. I'm sorry, my computer's shaking because I talk with my hands because I'm Italian. So I'm like this. I have to stop talking with my hands. But so that's the hook. It's the hook of the story, and it's certainly something that you do want to look at the genre, not necessarily to copy, but to see what is the expectation of that genre. We all know romance is happily ever after. If it's not happily ever after, it's not romance. It's drama or it's some other form. But there are certain things that are very specific to genre and what a reader expects. So you certainly can go off a little bit and do your own thing, but so long as you want to have like your core readership come from an established group of readers and have that opportunity to reach them, you want to look at what the genre expects. And if, like what Christy's doing, is she's straddling genre, well, she's got a little bit more flexibility because she's sort of creating her own genre, which certainly exists, but we might not have named it before. So she has a little bit of flexibility there. But when you're trying to go after that mainstream genre, certainly looking at what others are doing and making sure it's a hook. It's all about the hook, getting the reader in to a story that's going to keep them reading page after page, but you've got to get them in the door.
I think we just transitioned smoothly into our next question, which is, how do you write your blurb? Because I think the last three people kind of answered the question.
Actually different. Actually, you guys have been. This is such a great panel. You guys have all answered like every question that has been asked already. But I want to actually go to the chat and piggyback on something that Christy said. That Marnie asked, and that is, how do you avoid spoilers in your blurb? So how are we developing our blurbs and avoiding those spoilers? What is some key elements to doing that?
I have a sort of a formula for developing my blurb that doesn't answer the spoiler question, but it's pretty much, for me, you introduce your character enough in the first sentence that you want, that it gives readers what to expect. It sort of summarizes whether it's the first book. As an example, in my Queen of Thieves series, you have Viola, an 8-year-old child. That right there sets the character. Then you go into the first obstacle or the first challenge, whether it's being sold as a slave to the Night Guild or something like that. You introduce that first sort of setting that showcases the problems that they're up against. Then you use an emotional hook, whether it's the emotional journey, the emotional obstacles that they're facing, the things that really throws them off, sort of the character's developmental arc throughout the story. And you put all of those in, and then you have these strong verbs, not verbs like hold, but seize. You use these strong, punchy verbs that really catch people's attention. Seize, assault, brutal, a very sparing use of adjectives, but those strong ones that really capture people. And with that punchy language, it just draws people in.
Ladies and gentlemen, Andy Peliquin dropping the mic. All right, we're done. Go home. Panel's over. Good job, man. Oh, that's awesome. That was fantastic. Sorry.
Yeah. I also think that it's important if you're not in a specific genre, like everybody knows Andy Peliquin does dark fantasy. So you don't have to do a whole lot of world setting because he's already, if you know who Andy Peliquin is, you know the world that he's created. And I love it. But for those of us who kind of hop genres, it's important to also set the setting so that they know, is this a fantasy? Is this an urban fantasy? Is this a suspense? And you fit that in there as well. And as far as the question Marnie asked, I believe you said, of how to avoid spoilers, I can't do it. That's why I have betas. I'm really bad. I send it to my betas and I'm like, does this tell you too much after having read the book? And they'll be like, yep, you need to take out this. So I trust my betas. They're awesome.
My rule of thumb for avoiding spoilers is I'll usually think about the challenges or the obstacles, the antagonists they face in the first third of the book, give or take. And you use those because the truth is that you're supposed to introduce the ultimate antagonist or the ultimate problem within that first act. You don't explain how they solve it until the end, but you're supposed to have already introduced them. So as an example, in the second book of my Queen of Thieves series, from the 6th chapter, you know that the character Alana is going against the Duke of the city. So that right there, the blurb is focused around what the Duke does to piss her off, why she's going after him, and what she hopes to achieve. And then comes the emotional hook, the character arc, things like that at the end. But by setting up these stakes at the beginning of the book, you have something to work off of with the blurb.
And I'm just going to add, I agree. I think you focus on the obstacles and the challenges and the problems because a story is a person with a problem that learns and grows and changes. So if you focus on the problem and the person and the emotion, they have to read to find out how, how they learn, how they grow, how they change. But the obstacles are key, and that's what I do. I try to focus on all the problems that are happening along the way.
Yeah, I don't know that I have anything to add to either what Christine or Andy are saying. It's really about setting up the climax and not giving the solution.
Yeah, the only thing I could add to that is pretty much playing off what Andy said, that Andy, by the way, exactly like dropping the mic with that it's a formula, and I wish that I had done something like that because I struggle with these. I think a lot of authors do, and I will sit there and nitpick. I mean, when I say hours, I'm not really exaggerating, but it is like every single word does count. It's really important, like Andy said, to use punchy words that really, I mean, not just, like he said, the verbs that are more than just hold their C's, just like he said, but also whatever captures the ambiance, making literally every word count. And as soon as you see a wasted word, either get rid of it or replace it with something that works a lot better. And you're going to have a really powerful blurb with that. That's a good way to write in general.
I kind of see it as, bear with me here, it's like a middle schooler who's trying to BS their way through a book report and summarize it. So as if I've only read the first, like Andy said, the first third of the book, and I'm trying to cliff notes my way around it, that's how I don't give away too much. I kind of put myself in that mind, not that I was that kid, but I try to put myself into that mindset, and this is how I don't give anything away, by giving you basically just the veggies of what happens in that first act. Something anybody that would know that could sit down for the first 3 hours and start to read.
I know there's a lot of places online you can go to find like little formulas to use in order to write a blurb. Still, the one that I like the most is Deborah Chester's out of her fantasy fiction formula book that she wrote, and it's called the Spook Formula. And the way that you set it up is you first just mention what the situation is, who the protagonist is, make sure that you identify the objective in the story in terms of what your protagonist is trying to do, who the opponent is, and what the major climax is, or what the conflict is, and just really listing those things out in that order. Which I'll give you an example if you want to, just to be really fun. Let's say when his young daughter is used for blood magic, Andy Peliquin vows to do anything to get her back, even traveling to the depths of hell. But when he meets the evil wizard Christy Stratos and demands his soul in return, he doesn't know if he has what it takes to survive. Something like that. I mean, it's just a really quick boom, boom, boom. You list out what's going on, and it's brief. most blurbs are really only supposed to be 100 to 150 words long. I know we're going to talk about pet peeves later, but my biggest pet peeve are blurbs that go through the entire back of a book. They just need to be really short and catchy and something that's going to grab your attention. If I'm on Amazon and I'm reading through blurbs and I see that I have to click that read more and continue going down half a page, I'm probably not going to read it and I'm going to go on to another book.
Yeah.
Yes.
One thing that I try to remember is I wrote this book to tell a very specific story, or to answer a specific question. In the second Queen of Thieves book, it's what would a mother do to save her child or to free her child. So that's the really, really emotional hook of the blurb. In addition to all of the vengeance for the death of her friends and the awesome thieving and, you know, all of that, there's that hook, that mother-child relationship that everyone can relate to. So your blurb should pose the question, or should indicate what the question of the book is, or what the theme of the book is, and then give people an understanding of more or less where it's going to go.
Yeah, and you can easily do that even if it's not a plot-based book. Even when it's just character-based, like mine are all character-based, you can do the exact same thing.
Awesome. So Joshua kind of touched on it a bit. Is spoilers the biggest thing that we see, common mistakes or long blurbs, or what are some other ones that we've seen that really just should not be part of the book blurb process?
I have two. One is length, really long books, and the other one is introducing new terms that are just bizarre to the reader that don't really need to be explained in the blurb, that you can very well pick up in the context of the book. Now, I know sometimes that can be interesting, you know, but I know even for my own books, there's some really quacky races and some of the names are difficult. There's no reason in me putting that in a blurb. I'm going to push readers away. I can use that language in the book and explain it, but in the blurb, I can keep it very just concrete and to the point about what the story is about.
You know, I'm going to have to almost disagree with you on that one. I mean, as a fantasy reader, those wacky, way out there things are almost half the fun of the book. You know, being introduced to new races, new creatures, things like that. So
but it's got to be done the right way, Andy. It's got to be done the right way.
Absolutely. If there's 15 of these new words that I've never heard of before, then it's done wrong. But, you know, like, I'm sure if I looked at the Wheel of Time blurbs, there's going to be mention of the Sidene and Sidar, or the Aes Sedai, you know, things like that. And in a way, that's what gives it that fantasy flavor that's so different from the contemporary, the romance, the historical. So there is that. But then my biggest pet peeve is a blurb that just kind of, there's nothing to it. You know, it says, okay, there's this character, there's this thing, here we have a situation, and then maybe a half-baked question. But where is that hook? You know, as I've unfortunately have said too many times on this show, it's all about the hook for me. You know, I want to know what the story's really about, not this badass character who may entertain me for a while, but what's the story going to give me? What's the deeper themes, the question that's going to answer? A blurb that doesn't have that, for me, just next one.
I think for me, my biggest pet peeve is people that try to tell too much of their story in their blurb. You know, it's a blurb, it's a hook. It's not. I don't need to know the names of 5 or 6 of your characters. Just give me your main ones. Just give me, you know, your primary protagonist, maybe your primary antagonist if it's not a spoiler. But when I'm trying to juggle, you know, Game of Thrones level like names of like 40 different characters in a blurb, that really just tunes me right out, because I'm already completely overwhelmed by what you're giving me. So I always take kind of like a just the veggies, you know, perspective when dealing with blurbs and with reading blurbs. Like, the best blurbs that are going to hook me are ones that and spoilers are my big thing. Like, I remember as a kid, my favorite video game of all time is Final Fantasy VII. It was the first role-playing game I ever played. It was my introduction to the genre, but they spoil a major thing in the trailer for the game. And now as an adult, like, I look back at that and I'm just like, you really shouldn't have given me that. And I know it's a video game, not a book, but it's all the same. It's all a story you want to become immersed in, but now right off the bat, you know something big that's going to happen. So yeah, that would be mine.
And I think on the opposite side, when it's too vague, like, I don't know what's going on or why I would care. Like, you want to care. You want someone to say, what's going to happen next, not so what, like who cares? Or it's not a problem, it's a situation. You see that a lot. Like there's a situation. Well, that's not a book. That's a situation. So I think when you have blurbs that don't tell you what you need to know, not everything, but certainly what you need to know, the crux of the story, why you are going to care. And it's too much. They call it hiding the ball, where like you're trying to be so vague that, you want people to read, but it's so vague that everyone's confused. So I've seen that too, where it just, you don't get it through the blurb. So I think you absolutely have to be able to give a hook and certainly want people to care about the story and want to read it.
I agree with Christina, and I may get kicked for this one, so you guys can all virtually kick me, but I hate questions in blurbs. I don't like blurbs that end with a question. I feel like if you're a writer, you should be able to write something that's a little bit more catchy than just, what's she going to do type of thing. So I know it's a personal peeve of mine. Also read a book if it has a question at the end of it, but I always want something more of context than just ending with a question at the end.
I think it depends on the genre. I think that if you're doing young adult or urban fantasy, it's okay. But certainly dark fantasy and epic fantasy, you don't ever see that. And there's a reason you don't ever see that. So
Andy, yours don't end with the question, do they?
As well.
Actually, I have seen questions in some of the best books that I've read. I go to their blurbs and I check them out, and they do have some of them, not all of them. Maybe 2 out of every 5 or 10 will have a question in it, and it's definitely a question that's not just, oh my God, will the character survive this encounter with the bad guy? No, none of that. Like it's these questions that actually deliver something of value to the blurb. So a question, if done right, I kind of have to say this because I have used questions in at least 1, if not 2 or 3 of my blurbs. So I kind of have to stand by it.
Okay.
But a question, if done right, can be good. But like anything else with the blurb, if it doesn't really, really serve the purpose, and if it's just sort of a filler to half-ass the ending that maybe could sound good, then what you're gonna get is that reaction that Josh is like, no, I'm not gonna read this book.
Yeah, I'm with Andy kind of in that, like, I'm guilty of this, so I'm kind of gonna have to like defend it a little bit. Like the Rocinante Wrath of the Faithful, my most recent release, it ends with a question that is more a theme of the series itself, where I ask, who is strong? It's all about, like, a dragon burns within my soul or something. Who is stronger, the man or the dragon? So like it's kind of, it's not just kind of like, what's gonna happen next? It's not like how are our heroes gonna get out of this mess? It's actually like dealing with a theme of the overarching story for the series.
And I've definitely done it too. I've done it and I liked it. However, I've gotten my hand slapped a few times from editors on it, and I don't know if it's my genre or what, but so now I don't do it anymore. I actually turn the question into ending on the stakes, the highest stakes in the book. And I try to go with that because I liked the way that it sounded. And of course, it's an intrigue, but I've had my hand slapped on that one, so I don't do that anymore. But I was like Heidi was saying, I think it's probably a lot of it is genre and what the readers expect. And if your readers like it and they buy books with those question marks at the end, then keep doing them.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that it can be done well, and I think there's certain genres that definitely use it better than other ones do. But I like, if you're going to put a question in there, I like essentially giving both ends of the question, like, will the character be able to do this, or will the character have what it takes in order to be able to accomplish this type of thing, instead of, will she survive this terrible encounter type of thing, which I've seen a lot of those, and those make me cringe.
Yeah, and they're really popular in young adult. And they don't always, it is just a throwaway. It's not an actual legit question, and that drives me crazy.
They're super popular in our genre, Christina. Suspense crime. I mean, that's just like, it's almost a staple of that genre.
I know. And that's exactly where I got my hand slapped. Well, actually, it was paranormal that I got my hand slapped. And I was like, all right, I won't do that again. And now I'm very careful. But I'll give 2 endings to my editor. And I'm like, which one looks better? But yeah, I know, isn't it? It is. You go on the bestseller list and you'll see it. You're right.
I also feel like if a blurb is too generic and it looks like it's sort of copied and pasted, or it could be copied and pasted, I want to know what's unique about your book. Tell me something that makes it different. And you don't have to like say it in a sentence, but just give me something that makes your book unique. Because a lot of people will maybe try to ride on the coattails of something that was very successful, and like you could totally do that, but what makes it different? And if, again, like if it looks like I could copy and paste it and it's just the same thing over and over, I'm not going to read it. I already know what's going to happen. And that's the other thing that I mentioned earlier. If I read a blurb that has so much explanation, like regardless of length, let's just ignore the length for now. If it tells me everything up to the end, I'm done with it because we know the answer already, you know, most of the time. So those are two things that drive me nuts.
Well, I don't know if we're going to get into this or not, but that's a great point that Christy is making, and it's what I see oftentimes in advertisements as well, whether it's Amazon ads, Facebook ads, etc. Some people actually write better ads than they do book blurbs, and they give really catchy things that draw you into wanting to read it. But other people will use things that they essentially look like they copy and pasted. You know, if Lord of the Rings met blah, that's on so many books where they're trying to compare their books to Lord of the Rings, and it's like, I'm not going to buy your book just because you're making this generic claim. Like, give me something more of meat in order to want to dive into whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah, for me, those that was actually one of my pet peeves, is when it says such and such meets so and so. If I see that in a review, then I'm impressed. But if I see that on the blurb, I'm like, okay, so basically you're lazy, and so's your writing. And then the other thing I was going to say, going along with the feeling very copy and paste, if the blurb style doesn't feel like the look inside, that turns me off too. So if your book is cheeky and fun and quirky, and your blurb feels very cut and dry, that turns me off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's important that everything matches. The style of the cover has to match the blurb, has to match what's actually in the book, the style, everything. I agree.
It's funny you guys say that about the this meets that, because it's a very pitchy thing to do. Like, that's what people want. Like, when if you're pitching to someone to buy your book or to sell your book, that's what they want. They ask you, what is it like? What movie is it like? What book is it like? So people that do that, I think, are skipping the part of the reader, and they're trying to do what they would do to pitch their book. If you're not pitching your book to someone who wants that, that's no way to go, in my opinion, because you're not going to ride the coattails of some amazing book or amazing series, because you're different, you're unique. But it's very funny because marketing, they want that. They ask, what is it like? What can I compare it to? Because really, it's so unique. You can't compare it to any of those things, but you have to come up with something. So it's funny. I've never seen anyone do that in an ad, but now I'm going to look for them.
Oh, and it's also what's expected when you're pitching to traditional publishers. But I think I could be wrong. I'm not going to. But I think most of us self-publish because we don't want to fit the cookie cutter mold. Am I wrong in that?
I think
so. I don't want my book to be like this meets that mashup style. So that's just not me. But
I hate when people compare themselves to others, like especially in like a blurb format. Not just in books. Like people will ask me what it's like all the time, and then I'll begrudgingly say, like, well, if you need to make a comparison, it's this. But like, I used to, I was a professional wrestler for years, for like 13 years, and I used to train at the wrestling school, and I would ask guys, well, like, tell me about your character. What is this character you're developing? They're like, well, I kind of want to do like a Stone Cold Steve Austin thing, and I would stop them and I'd be like, there's already a Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he's a better Stone Cold Steve Austin than you. So don't be the next, Tolkien, be the first you, is kind of what I always say. And so when I see that in a blurb, I'm immediately just kind of like, I'm tapping out. I'm done. I don't want. If I want to read Tolkien, I'll go read Tolkien. I have his books. I enjoy his books. I know his books. So
yeah, the other thing. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Christy.
Yeah, just quickly, the other thing that along those lines is everybody gets a different experience out of reading a book. So if you draw attention to your book being like another one's and people don't like that, especially if it's outside of your genre, or it's, I don't know, it could be anything. You're comparing yourself to something that people may not enjoy, and while they may have liked the blurb, maybe now they'll be like, I don't know about that. I didn't like that book or something. So I'm always a little bit nervous about that. If I were to do it, I would be nervous about that.
Somebody just read Anarfell and did not leave a great review, which is okay. But they compared me to Mark Lawrence, and that's why they said they didn't like it, is because I wrote like Mark Lawrence, and I thought that was a great compliment.
A huge compliment. What?
And see, that's why I say leave it to the reviewers to do it. Because they will. They absolutely will. And again, it adds authenticity when the reviewer says it. And even if they don't like it, just like that guy does, anybody who likes Mark Lawrence and reads that will be like, oh, I need to read this book.
I love when reviewers do that and it catches you as the author completely by shock. Where I had one review say like, it's like Game of Thrones meets Assassin's Creed, and I was like, where did Assassin's Creed come from? Is it because they wear white? Like, I had no idea where it was coming. I always think that's really funny to see how other people view your work and compare you to who they're going to compare you to.
I wanted to add 2 little points about this whole thing, this blank meets blank. In your blurb, totally wrong. Like everyone was saying, in your pitch session, whether it's a Twitter pitch, whether it's a live pitch, that's good. So when you're writing a blurb, don't write a pitch, don't write a synopsis, write a blurb. A lot of people get kind of lazy with creating the copy because there's so many different types of copy. You've got to write ad copy, you've got to write blurb copy, the synopsis, the sneak previews. Like there's so much to do. Take the time to write each one. Now, moving on to the ad copy. I have seen a lot of people have great success with this blank meets blank because they're not appealing to authors. We authors have gone around the block and we've spent time researching these different things. How are we different from so-and-so? We think about how we're different. Readers don't think like that. Readers think, how are they like this author that I love? I want to find more authors like so-and-so. There are dozens of tools that you can literally Google authors like Joe Abercrombie, authors like Brandon Sanderson. And these algorithms will sort it according to similarity. So using this blank meets blank, for example, in my book blurb, after I have the blurb, I'll say fans of Brandon Sanderson, Scott Lynch, and Joe Abercrombie will love this character. And that right there is marketing. It's not part of the blurb, it's afterward. But number one, it hits the keywords. Anytime someone searches Brandon Sanderson on Amazon, my book is going to be later on down the list, or it's going to be in the also bots or also search fors because of the use of this keyword. But when readers see, okay, I like this blurb, this character sounds interesting. Oh shit, I love Brandon Sanderson. I'm going to go and check this book out. So using these comparisons for readers can be effective. People who are only readers and who are not authors. Now, as authors, we have the curse of knowledge. So it's sort of this 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It can work great for ad copy, but it also has the chance of backfiring.
It also works better if you're quoting a reviewer that said that. And that's one of the things that and I always, if I do that comparison, I do it quoting quoting a reviewer. And that was another thing, that back cover blurbs, for me, I get really frustrated when indie authors, if they don't have a Kirkus review or they don't have, a fancy reviewer, they don't feel like they can put reviewer quotes on it. But my experience is that most of the time, people don't care who said it. It's what they said. And so if you have a reviewer that says something well about your book, quote the shit out of that. Do it, man.
Let me ask you this, Heidi, with that specifically. Let's say I'm just releasing my book too. I have 0 reviews because it's not released yet. So what do I do with my blurb?
Did you send it to advanced readers? Did you send it to advanced readers? Quote them. Quote them. You know what, honey? Next time I read your book in advance, feel free to quote me. Feel free.
Excellent.
I actually try now. I didn't when I first started writing reviews because I wasn't writing reviews for authors that I knew. But I now, I try to create little sound bites that are easy quotes for reviews, especially when I'm reading arcs. And one of those is, it's kind of like this meets that. I do that because I know that readers do like that. And I know that authors need that. And I do read so much across so many different genres. And I'm also known to, especially with like Andy, your books are so very visual. I'll often compare them to movies as well when I'm talking to people. And that draws in a lot of people, because I know a lot of readers of fantasy in particular, if they can picture it in their head, they like it more. So comparing it to a movie draws them in more. So.
And that's where that comes from. Screenwriters are taught to do that in every pitch that they do. The first thing you tell somebody is, they'll ask you, if you don't tell them, this meets this. And you have to be relevant too. You can't just go, oh, it's Gone with the Wind meets 400 Blows, and they'll be like, what the fuck is 400 Blows? Nobody's ever heard of that movie. You know, you have to be like, you have to do right at the, you know, you have to be relevant in how you do that as well. You can't just quote obscure ones to do that. Funny thing happened to me when I was actually in almost being traditionally published. I was sitting in the conference room, and they were actually going back and forth on how to tell somebody else on the conference call how to compare it. Oh, it's like this meets this. And there was a couple of people back and forth arguing about it. It was kind of interesting, but that's how that whole conversation began with my book. So it was kind of, I was like, wow, great.
But I think to your point too, Joe, it's for marketing. They want to sell your book and they want to find the readers. So they are invested in finding a way to reach those readers, and they want to give them something to hold on to and a place to go. So that was great that they did that, because they were doing it for you. They were trying to define it for a group of readers to market and sell. And it's harder for us authors to do that for ourselves, but I certainly think it's meaningful in the marketplace.
Now, there's more to that. There's more to the story, but that's for another day. The chat was lively in this whole conversation while you guys were talking about this. People were talking about other things that bothered them were typos. I can't believe that somebody has typos. That's you know, that's amazing to me.
100 word and typos.
Yeah. You spell check, people. Come on. And then there's, you know, there was some Karina brought up adding your title of, you know, I'm a New York best-selling author, you know, from the New York best-selling author. That was something that was bothering people in blurbs as well. So there's a lot of things, I guess, that we can all improve on in terms of that. And I want to get to some more questions from the chat as well. There was a question from Rebecca asking, do you ever write to genre, to stay true to your genre and subgenre? We touched on that a little bit, but do you guys, I know we have some specific genre writers here. So do you guys stay true to your genre in terms of your blurb? Do you write in the language that the genre? Do you look at other books in your genre and kind of try to follow that tone?
I don't keep it to like other fantasy, like I try to not sound like other fantasy writers. I try to just sound like myself. So the blurb, you know, obviously the prose inside the book has to sound like me, and I want the blurb to match that. So essentially, like, I'm not trying to match George R.R. Martin. I'm trying to match myself inside the book on the outside.
Yeah, I write whatever I write, and I write like me, just like Kevin. And I write whatever I write, and I match the genre afterwards. Because I find that if I try to write to a genre, it's going to come out like it shouldn't come out, and I'm going to feel stilted. It's just not going to work for me. But that being said, if I was trying to submit to an anthology and they only accept, you know, mystery or paranormal or whatever, then I'm going to research the genre and I'm going to see what other authors are doing, and I'm going to make it mine. So there is a difference there for me.
I'm really excited about this. I've found a way where I can write to market while still being true to my world and my characters. Like, as an example, some characters that I introduced, minor characters that show up one and done in my first novel, Blade of the Destroyer, I'm writing a romance novel featuring them. And this is going to be like classic fantasy romance, but it's still going to have that same dark flavor of my world. It's still going to be the same sort of psychological stuff that I like to do in the book. It's going to be set in the city that everybody knows from the first book. Or later on, I'm going to have my half-demon assassin and my thief girl solve a mystery together. It's going to be a classic murder mystery, but with, instead of a detective, with these characters that I've created. So finding things like that, that was actually something that I've read a lot about in the last 6 months, is writing to market. And the idea for me, like, urban fantasy is just blowing up. And I, for the most part, have refused to write urban fantasy beyond a couple of anthologies that I signed up for. But finding a way to take the genres that are popular, the themes that are popular, and integrate them into the stories that I'm trying to tell. The new Thief of the Night Guild book has a couple of these things, or has at least one or two really popular elements, but they're written in a way that that feels organic and natural. So my advice is write to market within your style. Find a way to bring your unique flair, your story, to what the market wants. Marry the two and you will be super successful.
And I think that's also something that's really important when you're looking at blending genres. I do a lot of blending of genres, and it's okay to blend genres as long as you keep in mind the important parts from each genre that makes it a part of that genre. So with my Clear Angel Chronicles, it is a paranormal psychic detective thriller. That's a lot of genres that I've gone and mixed up, and being able to get all of those elements that are relevant. If I don't tick all of those boxes, then the crime thriller people that enjoy those crime thrillers and the police procedurals, they're going, oh, well, that couldn't have happened like that. That's not real. Just because there's the paranormal element to my story, the police officer has to still operate the way a police officer would operate, and it has to keep that realism. And the same thing goes with, just because I have the police procedural, I still have to have that element of the paranormal, and I have to make her psychic abilities believable. Otherwise, I'll lose the paranormal fans. So it's a lot harder when you're blending genres, because you have to meet the requirements of both sides without going too far on either side to make them go, oh, this is stupid, I'm not reading this. But it's fun. It's lots of fun.
There are some, Heidi, there are some genres that are so exacting like that. So that's a real balancing act you've got there.
How about for those of you who have written multiple genres and written multiple books, do you find that the tone of how you write is something that you've kind of mirror every time you write it, no matter what the genre is? Are you developing your own tone?
I find that my writing gets super sarky and snarky when I write modern. When I write my fantasy, it's very, very narrative, very authoritarian. And then when I write modern stuff, whether it's urban fantasy, I just wrote a superhero short story, it's just super sarcastic.
I agree. I think my tone changes. My voice is the same. I can see my voice in everything I write, but my tone will change if I'm writing a fast-paced thriller. There's a lot of action, and it's moving forward very quickly, and there are a lot of goals and more like visual, much more visual than if I'm writing like I just wrote a short story, and that was a little bit, it was just a different tone, a different feel. It was mystery, but it was just a different feel. So mystery is a little bit more, there's a lot of plotting. There's a different tone to it there. So yeah, I think you can switch tones certainly for what you're writing. But I find it hard. My voice is there. My voice is in everything. So I guess that's good. I don't know.
I agree with Christina. I've had people that, because mine, I write very different. I have some children's books. I have my urban fantasy series and my paranormal thriller, which are similar, but then I also have a contemporary story that's based on my experience being stalked in high school, and they're all very different. And some of my readers, it's hard sometimes getting crossover, which is okay because I'm telling the story I want to tell. But some of my readers who don't like those other genres, they're like, ooh, she's so dark and there's all this language in the urban fantasy. Well, yeah, they're killing vampires. It's not going to be pretty. You shouldn't read that book. Oh, there's, all of this drama in the contemporary thing, and they were expecting it to be more of a thriller because they came in on the Clear Angel Chronicles and it's about a stalker, but it's based on a true life experience, and early experiences with stalker is more drama than it is thriller. So there's a lot of difference in the different styles of my writing, but those who like all the different genres, when they read it, they're like, oh yeah, this is a Heidi Angel book. They know my description styles and formats are all very similar. So
my published work is all the same genre because it's all the same series right now, but I'm sure you guys have all experienced this too, where it's like all of a sudden like you're working on something, but there's this thing in the back of your head that's just kind of like write me. And so I wrote a pilot chapter for what is going to be my next series, and it's going to be more of a contemporary paranormal mystery series. And I found that my writing changed a lot based on the shift in genre. Like what you guys said, like it's still definitely me. It's still definitely my voice, but I write very much I write in third person, but in the POV of my characters. So it definitely changed a lot. The language changed a lot. The overall, it was more dialogue heavy than I'm used to. So yeah, I think that, when you shift genres like that, it definitely is possible that, your entire tone of language can shift.
So another question from the chat, which kind of is an offshoot of this a little bit, is from Tailor-Made Interviews, Mr. JB Taylor. Has anything you've written in a blurb or synopsis caused you pause and forced you to go back and change something within the story as a whole? Has the tone changed for you at all? Is that something that changes?
Usually for me, when I find an element that really stands out enough that it becomes a part of the blurb, it doesn't change the book that I'm working on, but it often becomes much more important in the next book in the series. I've only written series to date, so I don't know how people who write individual books live their lives. But yeah, if something's important enough to be included in the blurb, it's usually a thematic element either of the whole series or the book, and so including it, okay, the character had this growth arc in the previous book, so it needs to be addressed in the next book. And so it becomes maybe a bigger deal than it was because of its importance in the first book. Sort of, it's a subconscious thing.
It's funny because I just went through this process of synopsis with my latest, and even if you're not pitching and you're doing like we do, we're all doing indie publishing and self-publishing, synopsis is so helpful. You're really making a whole summary of your book, and it takes forever and it's tedious, but I find that it's really, the plot holes are glaring, the things that need to change are glaring, and it's such a wonderful editing tool that as painful as it is to go through, I actually enjoy going through it because I feel like when I'm done, I can see my story in 2 or 3 pages, this giant book with just the key stuff that's going on, and I absolutely have highlighted things and thought, oh, that needs to change, or I need to fix that, or that's something that I want to add in something here. And it's been an excellent editing tool for me to do a synopsis after the book is done, and then really change the core of the book if needed. But certainly, that might change the blurb too. I mean, there are so many tools that you can use to make your writing and your story better. And I think like some of them are really painful, like we were talking about, but they can be really helpful.
Anybody else? So let me incorporate another question from the chat into a question I was going to ask. And from JD Estrada, he wants to know, how does the blurb compare to your elevator talk and how does it differ? And one of the questions I was going to ask is the concept of log lines outdated? So that's kind of what it is a log line. So are you guys still using log lines to your advantage? It sounds like in ad copy that might be more effective than in blurb.
Yeah, I was going to say I use my tagline or log line as my ad copy. The only places on Smashwords I will put it because it has a section for your tagline, but on other retail sites I don't add it because there isn't a spot to add it, and yeah, I just don't.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I'll use a log line for ad copy, but I think I've used it on one book. I've used a log line on the cover, but I typically don't go that route. I don't know that it's outdated. I just don't know that I see it used as often in fantasy as maybe like historical fiction or romance or something along those lines. I could be completely wrong on that. Andy might have some other information on that too, or even Kevin, but I just don't see log lines as often on fantasy novels.
A log line is really handy for not on the book itself, but whether on a website, whether an ad copy, basically anything where you want to pitch your book to someone in a very short amount of time. And not only for for like an elevator pitch talking to people, but if you print a big banner, you don't have space for your blurb, but you've got space for 10 to 20 really cleverly crafted words. So it's another super important element of your marketing materials, if not something that always goes on your cover. I've created a log line for both of my series, and basically it just summarizes what the series is about, or gives it answers the question or poses the question that I'm going to answer in the series. And that right there leads people to say, okay, so this isn't just a story about a thief or a killer. There's something deeper. Let's find out more. And that leads people to check out the blurb, which is what eventually sells them. But it's super important to have. It doesn't always get used.
I think that when dealing with fantasy, I found that log lines and taglines work much better for me when I'm using them in visual teasers, that folks will make. Rather than have like a big long quote or anything else, just some striking imagery with like, a dragon sleeps beneath my skin, or who is stronger, the man or the dragon. I've used it in ad copy as well, but usually maybe like as an intro to it, like, make it nice and big, like right up front. But I find that log lines, especially for fantasy, can be really striking if done correctly in those visual teaser images or in a actual video trailer.
They're also great for Pinterest, just saying. Oh, and Instagram.
Nice. Anybody else?
I was going to say, and for when someone asks you, what's your book about? Because I always get tongue-tied and I'm at work and I'm like, what's your book about? And I'm like, well, it's about this girl and this happens. And you just go down a road and I'm like, the log line is just, it's everything. And it's just so helpful when you don't want to give it all away in a conversation, which I would do if I was just talking to someone about my book.
All right. Well, I'd be remiss if we don't get into the hot part of marketing for us indies, and that is staying away from clickbait ad promos, and what are some ways to not look like clickbait or get a promo across that's effective? What are some things that you guys have done that have helped you, not look like, the guy that's posting 7,000 times the same thing over and over again?
Some days I am that guy, and when I am, I just say that I'm clickbait. Please click me. But I think, honestly, it's interacting with your readers naturally on day to day. I mean, Andy does a great job with this in his reader group. I've seen a lot of other authors here do that naturally very well, where they just pose questions, or they talk to people, or they do live videos, and they interact with readers on a day to day, so that when they do send out an advertisement of some type, it doesn't seem like it's too much, because there's been so much other content in between.
I think advertisements are all about reaching people that I could never reach through my social media or through my email marketing list, things like that. So again, the ad copy, clickbait is a very specific type of thing where it's like, these 10 things that people love, you'll never believe number 5. Just shit like that no one likes. Unfortunately, people click on it. So at the same time, there's a lot to be said about clickbait, because it works. Now, if that's the brand that you're trying to sell, great. If not, you've got to be clever with your ad copy. But the ad copy is, again, just like the blurb. It's those short, punchy things. The more forceful your advertisement, like the more power it has in very few words, the better. And the images are everything. You can sell a book with 5 words and a killer image, but you use a shitty image in your ad copy, and even if you've got the greatest copy in the world, the image isn't going to do it. Right now, given the visuality, I'm going to say, of the modern web user, you really need to have powerful images. I actually saw this image the other day, and it was this image of this knight kneeling down with a sword and sort of a ray of magic or sunlight shining right on him. And it's just this generic image. And then the author pasted his book cover in the corner. And there was 2-3 words of text in the image, and that was it. But because of that image of the knight with the armor shining and the ray of sunlight, it drew my attention to the point where I actually downloaded the image and I have it on my desktop, because it's such a great example of what of what an awesome advertisement is for someone like me. So running advertisements is all about finding the striking visuals. Usually cover images have a lot of great striking visuals, working within that, you know, the color scheme, things like that. And then having a very, very short amount of ad copy, because people don't care what the words say. They see the image, the words above or below sort of emphasize what the image is all about, and that's where you sell them with that hook.
Andy's so right about imagery. I mean, I say all the time that L.M. Adams, who did my cover designs, she sold more books than I have of my series, because I had a reader come up to me at a signing recently, and she bought everything that I had, and then I got an email from her a couple days later where she was just kind of like, "Thank goodness that your cover art is so good, because that's what brought me in. That's what drew me in." And I found, like, when I've done Facebook advertising and stuff like that, typically I take my covers and I just kind of remove all the text from them, and I have like the imagery of the dragon or something like that. I feel that people will read your copy if your image draws them in. The artwork, I think the artwork is even more important sometimes than the actual ad blurb that you write, because if it's just generic, or if it's just like a stock image that people have seen 50,000 times before for other authors, you're not going to pull that person in. And so again, art is just so supremely important.
Yeah, and that goes for all social media. Like, it goes for Instagram, it goes for Facebook. I was recently saying this on another panel, when I would be on like my Facebook author page, and I do historical fiction as part of my genre, and I would put some really interesting historical facts, nobody cares. Even though it's different and it's interesting, nobody cares. But if you put like a really beautiful image or something, an unusual image, even if it portrays the same kind of thing as you were trying to say, it's a whole other story. People are interested. They're clicking. They're asking what you do. Yeah, that definitely makes a huge difference.
I was going to say, as an author, you don't want clickbaity. You want, they're interested in this, and that will cause them to click, but then also you want them to, once they click, buy. So you want to make sure it's relevant to what you're doing as well, because otherwise you're ending up paying for all those clicks and you're not getting any of those sales. So that's one of the things you have to balance too. The desire to have the clicks is a good one, but if you're not getting the sales to reflect that clicks, you're just paying a bunch more money, because most of the advertising that you do is CTR, which is click-through rate. And so the more clicks you get, the more you pay, but the less sales you get from those clicks, the more it costs you in the long run.
Yeah, and playing off of what you just said, Heidi, I've come across things where it'll have either a picture or a line that has something to do with a minor part of the book, it turns out, and actually not the majority of it. And so when I read that, it annoys me, because I'm sort of like, excuse me, I bought this book based on what you put, in your ad or whatever. That's very frustrating. I mean, that's all it does, is frustrate you and make you say this book didn't live up to expectations because you advertise something that doesn't even matter to the book. So don't do that. Oh my goodness.
Exactly. Another thing that I think, when what I do with my ads, because I've already got my audience captured in my thing, I do about 20% of my content is about me on my social media. 80% of it is about other authors. It's about my angel's life of bookish goodness, which is sharing other indie authors. And the only reason that I share the stuff that I share that's mine, it's not to get them to buy, it's to test. And if they're getting clicks and they're getting likes or loves or comments, the ones that get comments are the ones that I put up. Because if my readers connect and go, oh my gosh, Chris is my favorite character, well, then we're going to advertise Chris's quote, because everybody loves Chris. And I've got 6 main characters in the book, and that's the one that everybody relates to. Okay, then he's going to get the most advertising stuff. And that's what I use when I advertise. But my social media advertising is based on how my audience that I've already established reacts to those posts. And again, you don't want to overdo it, because if they're annoyed, then they won't interact, because they're like, oh, it's just another advertisement.
Is when you advertise just as important as how you advertise? Is it, you know, if you have a sale and people know that you have a sale, or do you just advertise whenever? It doesn't matter.
I've seen authors who spend thousands of dollars a month on advertising. One author spends $3,000-4,000 a month on advertising, but they make $8,000 or $9,000. So for a lot of, I'm going to say, beginner authors, especially indie authors, advertising is something that you do primarily around your book launch or your sale or your discount or something. But one thing that I'm learning as I advance, so to speak, is that advertising is really the only way that you're going to reach new people in a significant way. So it's something, you know, there's the most successful authors have 4 or 5 ads on Amazon at any given time. They've got 2 or 3 at least on Facebook. They're maybe running some on Goodreads, and it's just always advertising. And they're, you know, there's a lot of turnover. They're spending a lot of money on advertising, but they're also making a lot more because their ads work. And unfortunately, I haven't had the chance to do a lot of advertising specifically on Amazon because all of my books are with small presses. But I'm self-publishing books just so that I can run ads on Amazon to test that out, to get experience, find what works, so that if when I, you know, self-publish en masse, or I have a lot of books to advertise, I've learned the ins and outs, the sneaky secrets and things, so that I can actually get those results. Because that daily advertising, even if you're spending $5-6 a day, $10-20 a day, if the ads work, you can make a lot more money than you'll spend.
And I have to agree with Andy. I think the only 2 things that have ever really worked for me when it came to ads, I do a lot around book launches, and I go to all the reader sites. Like, I'll pay for an ad on Digital Book Today or eReader News or wherever I can get in, just because I want my books or my name, really, because your name is your brand. I want my name in front of as many people as I can get it in front of. You know, whoever I'm connected with already on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram are my friends. Like, I consider friends. And even though that some are acquaintances, they're friends. And so I'm primarily talking about me, my life, what's going on with them, and that kind of social interaction. There's very little marketing that I do in those platforms unless I have something to say, like my newsletter came out or I have a book releasing. My ads, I do shift those to the unknown marketplace where nobody knows who I am. So, but I will say the things that have worked great for me are Facebook ads, directing people to either my reader group, because I'll do giveaways in my reader group. So a lot of people do stick around once they show up there. My Facebook page, you know, there's not a lot of traffic there these days on Facebook. It's very hard to get traffic on your page, but I've done those, and that's helped. But primarily, even though we authors kind of stay away from Goodreads, and I'm not on there. I'm on, but I don't like talk to readers. I don't hang out, but I do giveaways, and I have a book I give away every single week. One of my paperbacks, I rotate a book a week, and really what that does is it just gets my name out there. It's like, for me to send a book in the mail once a week is nothing compared to the amount of people I'm reaching, and it's about getting my name out there. And it's a very like low-key way to advertise, because I'm not shoving anything in anyone's face, and I'm kind of like, my name is always on the giveaway list. I'm on the beginning and the end of the giveaway list all the time. I always have a book that's going out. So for me, it's been a really easy way to subtly get my name out there and hopefully reach some readers I wouldn't otherwise. But I agree with Andy. Like, you have to get your name out there. It's just how much can you spend? How much are you willing to spend? It's, you know, it's hard for a lot of people to do that. I don't think that, you know, we work full-time jobs to spend money on advertising to sell books. Like, we want it to be the other way around, right? So you have to pick your battles. But I found Facebook to be affordable. I'm dying to try Amazon. I haven't done that yet, but I definitely will be trying that. And certainly Goodreads. I don't have to be there, but I know Goodreads is working for me because people do participate in those giveaways, and I see it in my numbers. So it's helpful.
I have a
one of the things.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Andy.
I just wanted to say I have a super sneaky secret that I discovered. Haven't yet tested, will be testing now, is when you run a Facebook advertisement specifically, you select your audience, right? You've got your audience, your target audience, and then you run your ad. And after you finish the ad, you exclude all of the people that advertisement reached, because a lot of them were people that was on your friends list or fellow authors who liked your page. and people who are sort of in the same community as you. So exclude everybody who saw your book or who clicked on your book in that first advertisement, and it'll reach a whole new demographic. It'll maybe be, you know, the same people in your age 18 to 34, but instead of advertising to Texas, which is where all of your friends happen to be, they're going to start pushing the ads in California where you don't know anybody. And that's how you start reaching new people, is by getting outside your network. So that's just a secret that I discovered and that I'm going to test to see if it works. But I really like the sound of it.
Yep.
One of the other things, and this is more geared towards new authors that are starting out that have a very small budget and don't have a lot of recognition, is if rather than advertising your book on Facebook, give something away to get them to come and join your community. And a lot of people, they'll either give away a short story or whatever. When you're showing Facebook ads, you're reaching at the top of the sales funnel, and you're going to have to hit them 7 to 20 times before they will click, and then before they will buy. And you want to minimize the amount of that click through that you're getting that doesn't turn into a sale. So if you get them to click to join your e-newsletter or to get your free book, then you can spend the next 20 clicks not spending money. You can do it through your community engagement and through your involvement in that way. And that's a great way to help save money. Another thing, when you're starting out, even if all you can afford is $10 a month, $10 a month is better than nothing. And I see a lot of authors are like, oh, I can't afford $10 a day. It's stupid to advertise. There's not going to be enough proliferation. The key is, when you only have that little amount, you tighten your audience so that you're getting that, because you don't want to hit 5,000 people with your $10 a month, because then you're only hitting them once, twice, 3 times. If you tighten your audience, then you're hitting 2,000 people the 10 to 20 times to get them into your market, if that makes sense. I need visual aids for this. Sorry.
The targeting that you're able to do with something like Facebook or something nobody like Google AdWords is another one. You can really target very specific audiences, and I think that is kind of the beauty of it. And they give you so many analytics to look back on, so that you can kind of like, you can make your stumbles when you're spending. Like right now, I'm doing like $20 a month on some Facebook ads or something like that. But I pour over the analytics and I try to see, okay, we reach people from this community, and this community, and this is how it translated into sales. So then I can then go back when it's time to spend more money, and I can kind of target it a little bit better. So it's good to kind of make your mistakes and take your stumbles and fall on your face a little bit when you are in that initial stage of just, spending $10, $20 a month.
Yeah, and going off of that and what Heidi said, here's something that didn't work for me at all. There was a time I did a Facebook ad where, or a boost, whatever it was, where I said that my book was on sale at Smashwords for 99 cents. And I got a good response from that. But then I did a Facebook ad or boost that was, it said that I was doing a giveaway of my book, same kind of thing, only this was free. Giveaway of my book, but you have to go to my YouTube video. Got no attention, no clicks, no one was interested. And I think the reason is because they had to go elsewhere, not just to enter it, but to watch a video, and like actually participate in something. It wasn't just click and enter. So that was one thing I learned. It sounds pretty obvious, but I figured that it would be a good way to draw people into my YouTube channel. But it actually had the opposite effect. So it's kind of funny that a giveaway, regardless of how I did it, the giveaway got less response than 99 cents, which did sell books. So definitely keep in mind how many clicks and you're making people do, and where you're bringing them, and where the value is for them, and what your audience is actually looking for. That's one lesson that I already learned through that ad.
One thing that I found to be particularly effective in Facebook ads is to do it as a slideshow. And to have it, so like you can actually, it's so customizable where you can like set the number of seconds between images. So you get like, what I did was I took my 2 books that are currently out and my 3rd book that's going to be coming out this fall, stripped all of the text out of the images because Facebook does not like verbiage in images. It's like a big mistake that a lot of people make with Facebook ads, is because if you have text in your image, they're gonna not push it out as much. But you know, you have that shift of the image, so like one image melting into the other, which will draw the eye a little bit more. And if it's striking imagery that's appealing to the audience that you specifically targeted, I mean, that's going to be a big draw for them. And it doesn't cost anything more to do it like that. It doesn't cost anything more to have 3 images than it does to have 1.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Kevin, actually, because especially about the text in an image, because I had seen that instruction. I saw some instruction on Facebook when you're doing an ad, but it was very unclear. And so I thought they were saying you shouldn't have text in the ad itself, like writing things just in the ad. But in the picture, I thought you could have text. And they actually stopped my ad and told me I couldn't do that. And I was like, well, you should make your instructions clear. But actually, it was funny because I asked the person who was talking to me about that, you know, the person from Facebook, and I said, well, I don't understand, because, you know, the text is in the ad, but it's not like in that area that has actual text. Like you can't copy and paste it or anything. I thought that's what the whole thing was. And she was like, I don't know, I don't understand it. So don't like think that they can tell you, because they might not be able to, but definitely look at what other people are doing and just sort of figure it out for yourself. But I'm really glad you mentioned that, because they canceled my ad because of that.
Yeah, they're very, like, you have to, when you were working with, and you know, I had kind of a leg up going into it because I do work with Facebook ads and Google AdWords, like, through my everyday job. And I've been doing it for years. So, you know, you have to kind of learn to speak their language. You have to learn what their algorithms are. And especially like when it comes to, you know, even building SEO into, say, like your website and things like that, you need to keep up with it, because Facebook and Google and places like that, they're constantly changing those algorithms, and you kind of have to have your finger on the pulse of it. Otherwise, you're going to get left behind, or you will make a mistake like that because, you know, one thing's not clear, and then they're just gonna chop the head off.
That's another thing that I would recommend, especially if you're working with a low budget. Well, anybody who's smart. You want to do as much research as possible before you start advertising on a site. Josh and I are part of, and Andy's a part of, a really great group called 20 Books to 50K. And it's a Facebook group. Anybody who wants to join, it's really easy to join. You just request and they'll let you in. And they talk about what keywords are working in which genres, and we all kind of share information on what we're doing for marketing. And they have a section for AMS ads, they have a section for Facebook, they have a section for Goodreads. And if you have a question and you don't know, you can add it in, but also go outside of what's going on in the book community and learn just the basics of marketing. If you don't have a background, I have a background in it just like Kevin does, and so that kind of gives us a leg up. But if you don't know what CTR means, you need to be following a marketing blog that focuses on digital advertising. If you don't know what the term copy means, you need to be following somebody who's talking about copy editing. And this stuff is not hard. We all do research. It's maybe not as interesting as the research you do for your book, but when you start seeing those sales coming in and you're not frustrated because you're looking at that blank line on Amazon all the time, all of a sudden it becomes really interesting. I used to hate numbers. Well, I still hate numbers, I'll be honest. But I do love the pretty graphs that I get to follow what words are getting the click-throughs and what tags are working and all that stuff. And when you start seeing those results, it's totally worth it.
Another great resource is looking up Joanna Penn from the Creative Penn. She does a great seminar on Amazon ads and how to set them up, and they go step by step and show you every piece on how to put in your keywords and how to do your clicks and what money works and what money doesn't work in terms of how much each click should be worth. And it's excellent advice. I've used that, and I've seen a huge increase on Amazon just by following her advice in her free seminar. So that's a great place to look as well. But yeah, like Heidi said, you have to be part of some marketing groups to start getting some of that initial information. 20 to 50 books is an excellent place to start at. They even have a forum you can be a part of as well. And there's just tons of back information that tells you how to do a lot of those ads and set them up to be successful.
Yeah, I'm really glad that yeah, I mentioned that about like click-through rates and whatnot. A/B testing is also a really important thing when you're putting up ads. So and what I mean by that is run one ad with one headline, run another ad with another headline, see what you have to do those testing things to see kind of what works for you and what works for your audience, especially when you're new. It's funny, I just actually joined that group while you guys were talking about it. So, but one thing that I was wondering, like, I haven't heard anyone really talk about AdWords. Is anybody here? I haven't utilized it for books at all, but I've worked with it a lot, like through just my professional career. Does any of you guys utilize Google AdWords for for books, or do you find that that's a little too broad of a platform?
I use AdWords to help me develop words when I'm setting up Amazon ads, but I haven't set up anything on AdWords specifically. But it's got a great tool within it where you can put in a word like, George R.R. Martin or fantasy books, and then click words like this, and it'll give you a whole rundown of other things that people search for that also search for that. And you can just copy that list and put it right over onto Amazon and use it as words for people to search for to find books on Amazon, which increases your sales. So it's a really great tool, but I haven't used AdWords to actually sell books.
Right. So you're talking about the Google Keyword Planner then?
Yes, sir. Yep.
I did Google AdWords. I got great click-through. I did not get great sale-through. And Google AdWords is really hard to compete with, especially if you price your books at $2.99 or less, because the keywords are, a lot of times you're paying upwards of $1.75. And that was 3 years ago. I don't know if it's changed, but I know that was the struggle I had with Google AdWords. Google Display Network 3 years ago, I'm not sure how it's doing now, I did really well with, but then I started getting better buy through on Facebook. So I went to Facebook instead of putting that budget towards Google Display Network.
AdWords was good for my website and also good for my YouTube channel. That helped a lot. So if you guys are looking to increase YouTube channel, because it's they're when they're connected. So they help you a lot more with those, and they make you more visible because you're using their technology, so to speak. So two last questions, and then we'll let everybody go here. One from the chat I wanted to ask from Peter Clark, the writer. What kinds of marketing or brands do you personally click on yourself? What gets everybody on this panel excited? Wow. Don't all jump at once.
What brands we click on personally? I don't know that I click on any. I spent my early 20s doing a lot of ad survey things, getting paid to do surveys. I made like $150 to $300 a pop doing panels and surveys for major brands, which was a great way to bring in income, but it completely from what what people do to actually get you to click on stuff. And so now I hardly click on anything.
I'm a complete sucker for clickbait. Like I'm that millennial that that's designed to target, because people like what you guys were saying before. It's the top 20 celebrity feuds. You won't believe number 5. I'm like, well, what was number 5? I have to know. If I don't know, I'm gonna be like, well, would my life have been changed by knowing what number 5 was? So I'm probably the wrong person to ask, because I am a total sucker for ads and for clickbait.
I am guilty of clicking on books and hiding anything that has to do with clothes, because just because I'm a woman does not mean I'm obsessed with clothes.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough question. I think it's a tough question these days, because whatever website you visit is just going to advertise to you. So it's sort of like, I'm going to go there anyway. The ad becomes annoying because I've already gone to this particular website. I know it's there. You're not showing me anything new. So in that way, it kind of works the opposite way for me. But I think, maybe it was different when they didn't used to have that ability to just advertise directly to you after you've gone to the website, and then you'd see different stuff. I never see different stuff. It's just all the stuff I already know.
I used to work for a search engine optimization and pay-per-click management company, and because obviously I would go to our website a lot, I would get all the remarketing ads. So they did an ad called it's like search engine dysfunction. It was supposed to be like a male enhancement, like parody kind of thing, like, you know, like trying to get your SEO score up. And like, so like every time for a period of like 6 months, every time I clicked on a YouTube video, my boss's face would pop up on my screen and he'd be like, I know I don't have any backlinks, but I didn't know that would mean I can't get it up. And I would just be like, ugh. So yeah, remarketing can be annoying.
Yeah. And I do the same as Chrissy. I purposely shut down any browser I'm in if I'm going to do anything online, because I don't want the ads coming to me. But I am a fierce supporter of everybody in my community and friends and family. If there's anything they're selling, if they have a small business, like I buy everybody's everything. Like I will support all those people, but I don't. I try not to click through on random stuff because I'm like paranoid they're tracking me. So I'm shutting down my Facebook before I go shopping.
Well, let me skew it a different way. This question: has any ad struck you that you go, I love what that guy did there, especially an author that you've used yourself in your own ads?
Yeah, that
I'm always stealing
that
from
one
other
advertisement.
people.
Oh, go ahead, Heidi.
Oh, I was just saying, I'm always stealing from other people.
There was that one advertisement that I mentioned with the kneeling knight and the thing. It was just such a striking visual that I think I actually checked out the book on Amazon, read the blurb, checked out the look inside. It wasn't my thing, but that image, and it really highlighted for me the importance of a great image. I don't think I even read his copy. There was a couple of words of review, but that was it. But that image was so striking that I just had to find out what it is.
And for me, it's video. If anyone's selling their book and they go on video, I'm like, I want to watch, I want to hear, I want to know, where do I go? I love the video, whether it's live video or it's a sponsored ad video, any video with a person holding their book up or talking about whatever they have going on. I want to see them. I want to hear them. I feel like it's a connection you can't get from just mere words or even the visual. I love the visual and photography, but certainly the video is what gets me every time.
Yeah, I saw that with James Patterson, and I went, I had no idea he was so cute and quirky. Oh my gosh, I love him even more now. And then I realized he was selling a children's book, and it made sense. But it was still, yeah, it was awesome. I loved it.
All right. So my last question to all of you is, what have you seen, or let me get the question right. What's one thing you can't believe more aren't doing in their marketing?
Sharing reviews. It's something that, I mean, you have to be careful, but I love, Josh does it. And that's actually where I got the idea from. Anytime Josh gets a new review, he shares it with his social media. And it's social proof. And it lets those people who are already following but maybe haven't decided if they want to read that book to go, oh, yeah. And then on top of that, it also gives validation to people like me who've already read it and go, haha, they loved it too. That's awesome. And so it helps to foster that community. It also makes the people who are reading your books go, oh, I want him to notice me. I'll write a review. And mind you, that's not me as an author speaking. That's me as an Angel's Life of Bookish Goodness who loves to read and loves to see when people quote my review and share my review. That's me as a reader talking.
I think it's for me, authors not contacting libraries and bookstores and trying to set up getting their books out there to the public. I think there's this fear of like connecting with people and just asking questions and trying to learn what that whole atmosphere looks like. And I don't know what exactly it is, but there's a huge market out there to get your books in libraries and small bookstores and, you know, wherever it may be at, but they don't go out and do that. And they just think that they're going to, you know, get online and hit it big and their stuff's just going to take off. But there's a whole other side where people buy books and read books that I don't see a lot of authors reaching out to.
I would say one thing would be not sharing enough of themselves. If you just have stuff about, it's great to have stuff about books. It's great to have stuff that is sort of business oriented. But if I don't see any personality, that always surprises me. And I think that you can easily lose people if you seem sort of cardboard. So, you know, when I had first read some social media advice, it was not specifically for authors, it was in general. And they didn't really mention much about personality. And when I tried doing that stuff, really nothing was happening at all. But then once I got really into the author community, I was seeing a lot of personality, people just being themselves and sharing themselves and talking to other people naturally. And I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And when I started doing that, it was the same thing. I started meeting a lot of people I liked a lot, meeting readers who were interested in my book, people I was interested in their book. And so I think it is important to share yourself when you share your book, when you do any kind of maybe not advertising, but you know what I'm saying, like on social media platforms. It's definitely important to share your own personality.
I agree with Christy 100%. And I think we have to be clear about who we are. Like, it's know who you are. I feel like that's so important. And when you're clear about who you are and what you love and what's important to you, share that. Sharing that with people is everything. It's going to, your tribe will come to you. And I think when your tribe comes to you, they will read your books. And, you know, there's all of the science behind the marketing and everything is really important. We have to know that and we have to practice that. But being you on social media and being the same person online that you are when you meet each other. I mean, I met Christy, we met in person first, but I can honestly say that you're that same person, you know, online as you are when I see you live. And that's so refreshing to me. I think it's disheartening when the other thing happens. When you see this awesome person online, you're like, this is so great. I can't wait to meet them in person. And then they're not that person. They're somebody else that they don't show to you. So I think you have to get really clear about who you are and what's important to you and share it. You know, share it with people because that's who they want to know. And I'm just shocked that a lot of people don't do that as much. You know, I think we're all really good at that. I mean, this is what is important to us. And I see all of us, you know, on the different panels I've been on, we talk about this a lot, but out in the world of authoring, like, it's just not that way. And certainly the personalities that come across online aren't always the same in person.
With that, I would have a caveat of, I get frustrated when I see some authors oversharing, especially negative stuff, and maybe because my personality, but I'm a generally happy, positive, friendly person. And then when I see people bashing other people's stuff or talking bad about their experiences as an author on their reader page, you know, I actually created a separate group called Authors Anonymous for authors to be able to get together and vent and have those discussions, because we all have bad days, but you don't want to tell your readers that you're having a bad day. Of our little idiosyncrasies and obsessions that aren't necessarily healthy to share. And I think there is a point where you have to be careful not to overshare too. A fine balance. And it's hard, especially for introverts. And a lot of authors are introverts. And so when people tell you to share, they share everything. And then it ends up turning people off and turning them away. You want to cultivate, it's just like in your professional life. When you go to work every day, you interact with people, you talk about things, but you don't tell them about the fight you had with your husband last night. You talk about your kids, but you don't tell them that sometimes you secretly hate your oldest child because he's a teenager and they're awful as teenagers. You don't say those things because it feels weird. It's too personal. And so finding that balance is really important as well.
I absolutely agree with what you guys are saying. For me, I've always found that it's important to, in essence, build your brand. You know, when you look at certain writers, they have a brand around them. Stephen King has a brand. John Grisham has a brand. And it's more than just kind of letting the work speak for itself. You kind of have to be the guiding voice behind it. And I mean, I have, you know, I live by the rule that there are 3 things that you never bring up in polite company, and that's religion, politics, and the great pumpkin. Like, those are the 3 things that you just kind of don't ever go there with. And, you know, like, I have opinions on all of those things, mostly about the great pumpkin. But you know, you'll never know it as one of my readers, because it's like, I'll share my opinion like that. Maybe I think that that Spider-Man Homecoming is sharing too much in their trailers, or, you know, like geeky things that are outside the realm of my books. But yeah, I never get into the personal. Like, I never will talk about my relationships or my family or anything like that. I keep it superficial, but I keep it fun. And I think that's kind of what you have to do when you're in the public eye. And as much as maybe we don't want to admit it, we are in the public eye.
Exactly. And it's okay to mention your family and your relationships. You know, like Lillian and Josh, they have this whole cute family thing. And that tells readers this is a family-oriented group. But they don't go on and talk about how much frustrating this was. They keep everything light and fun. And so the readers know, hey, they're family-oriented. Their books are going to be family-oriented. I know one of the main reasons that I'm getting their books is for my boys because, well, okay, that's not true. I'm using the excuse of buying it for my boys because I want to read it. But it is, you know, and so it is, but it is about creating the persona you want to have. And there are some people who have that negative persona, but you want to be careful how you're crafting that, because there are some, you know, if like, for example, there's David Van Dyke. Don't quote me. I'm pretty sure it's David Van Dyke. He's a science fiction author. He puts up a lot of political posts. And it's because he does a lot, his is hard sci-fi, and he focuses on how the world is going to become. So you can do that if that's what you write. But if you write romance and you go and throw up a bunch of political posts, you're going to turn people off to your writing before they ever read it. So you do want to make sure that what you're sharing is relevant to what you're writing them in. I know the woman that wrote the Vampire Chronicles, why can't I think of it? Anne Rice. She had a really hard time. She actually has completely stopped doing Facebook because she's a very political person, but her books aren't really political. And she would post political questions of the day, and she was just getting slammed for opinions, which weren't really reflected in her books. And so she was losing potential readers for something that had nothing to do with her books, and it really, really hurt her.
Yeah, very awesome. This has been a very awesome panel. You guys have been awesome. Thank you so much. And I'm going to say awesome 1,500 more times. But this has just been a fantastic, awesome experience. I've learned a lot personally, like that Facebook customer service is a lot like Home Depot, that I need to do more YouTube videos for Christina about my book so that she can go and buy my book and get excited about my book. And I need to redo my trailer and make sure that Heidi's review is quoted in that as well. And that I look forward to meeting each and every one of you in person, because I know that you guys are the sweet, lovable bunch that I know you as, and I'm real excited about that possibility someday, and hope we can all do this live together one day. That would be amazing. But let me get everybody a chance to tell everybody where to find you, because they need to go and find you, and they need to definitely check out everybody's blurbs, because everybody's blurbs here are fantastic, and you should be buying their books. So let me start. I'm going to go right to left this time. So Christina, you're up first.
Okay, I'm ChristinaRienzi.com. That's where the best place to find me. Connected to all my social media accounts there: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, etc., etc. But ChristinaRienzi.com. And it's been great. It's been great talking to you guys. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Christina jumped in at the last minute, so I can't thank her enough for that. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. All right, Kevin, you're up.
Yeah, so you guys can find me. My website is authorkevinjkessler.com. It is not nearly updated enough, which I will be changing soon. But on Facebook, you can find me at facebook.com/KevinJKesslerAuthor. Twitter is @KevinJKessler, and Instagram is @WhiteDragonPN. So yeah, and thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate the opportunity to get on here and mix words with you guys. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Kevin. And I agree with you. Marvel does way too much selling of their trailers. They give away too much of their
right?
You know,
Oh,
it's horrible. I watch the first trailer and then I try as much as I can to avoid the rest of them. It's very hard.
I've seen the movie already. I know what's going to happen.
Right. Yeah, that's the painful part about it. And just for everybody, I actually have Kevin's book, and I read the first page. It's probably one of the best first pages of any book I've ever read. It'll capture you right from the beginning. So definitely go check that out.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
All right, Josh.
All right. My name is Joshua Robertson. You can find me at robertsonwrites.com. That's ROBERTSONWRITES.com. I know Joe's got the link down below. I know I got a big backlist, but I would encourage you guys to go check out my newest release, Blood and Bile, which just came out, co-authored with my brother, J.C. Boyd. At least go and check it out on Amazon and read the back blurb, because I did something on this book that is completely against everything that we told you tonight. We actually wrote the back blurb as an alternative scene from a character that you never hear from in the actual book. So you get an alternative scene on the back, which we had a lot of fun doing. So go check that out, and then tweet me at Robertson Writes and let me know what you think about it. Thanks for having me, Joe. I love all these people. I know all these people outside of GoIndie Now. They're all great authors, so you got to check out their work.
What an awesome thing to do, Josh. That's really cool. I didn't even realize that. That's amazing. And for people who don't know Josh, you better follow him, because he's amazing on Facebook. He does the live Facebook better than anybody I've ever seen. So definitely go check that out. All right, Heidi.
I'm Heidi Angel, and you can find me at HeidiAngel.com. That's with 2 L's, because I'm not that kind of angel. And I am everywhere as Heidi Angel or Heidi Angel author. So I'm on pretty much every social media platform and then some. Oh, and I'm on Patreon. Come and join me on Patreon if you love books, because I don't talk about my books on Patreon. Well, I do a little, but it's mostly about other authors' books and authors and tons of fun stuff. And the whole goal of the community is to support authors by buying authors' books to give to my patrons every month. So, Heidi Angel.
It's an awesome experience there, and Heidi is paving the way for Patreon fans. So definitely go check her stuff out at Patreon. She's doing some really cool stuff there, and it's cheap. It's just $1. Well, you can start at $1. There's other tiers, but to get a lot of really good stuff for $1 a month, that's pretty awesome. It's hard to beat. All right, Christy.
I'm Christy Stratus. You can find me at christystratus.com. I'm also at Christy Stratus everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube especially. My book, Anatomy of a Darkened Heart, is the first in the Dark Victoriana collection, so definitely go check it out. And the second one, Lock and Key, is going to be coming out soon. I'm really excited to publish it, so definitely keep your eyes out for that. And as always, thank you so much for having me, Joe. It's always time to go indie now.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, Christy. Hey, hold up your book real quick for me. Just hold it up real quick. How awesome is Christy Stratus? She is doing, I'm going to click on her real quick. Look at her book, and then look at the backdrop. She's on a marketing panel, and she's marketing her book right behind you, everybody. That's fantastic. What a great, it's an awesome book. I'm like halfway through it, and I struggle to fall asleep at night because I'm reading this amazing, amazing book. It's really good.
Thank you so much.
I can't wait to finish it. I'm actually kind of scared to finish it, actually.
Thank you.
All right, Andy, go ahead.
Well, I am Andy Peliquin. You can find me all over Facebook and Twitter and Amazon and all of that as Andy Peliquin. Good luck trying to spell my last name, because that's always a really fun one. People usually mangle the name. It's actually Peliquin, but I don't want to sound like a douchebag, so Pelican it is. I have the second book in my Queen of Thieves dark fantasy thief bank heist novel coming out on July 18th. And I'm really excited for that one, because I'd like to say that's the best book that I've ever written. So I'm super excited for everyone to see that one. So go check it out on Amazon, Thief of the Night Guild.
Very cool. And for people who don't know, Mr. Andy Peliquin has an awesome fantasy podcast with his partner. Tell everybody about that too, Andy, because that's a really cool podcast.
Yeah, the fantasy fiends with the giant and the gnome. That's our new tag. I'm 6'6", and my friend Stevie, he's 5'8", so we're now the giant and the gnome. And we get to do fun stuff where we do live reenactments of the author's books. We do the voices and the accents. I just did the High Gungan voice for a troll character on the last podcast, which was a ton of fun. I did a Scottish accent in the one before that. And so we get fantasy authors, and we have interesting discussions, not just about books, but also about different topics relating to life in general. We did brainwashing for a previous one, or how religious people can read and write fantasy without it clashing with their religion. We really get into the deeper fantasy topics, and it's been a ton of fun. So check us out on Facebook as the Fantasy Fiends.
Very
And
cool.
YouTube.
And Mr. Kevin Kessler was on one of those episodes where he was actually driving in his car. I was actually kind of frightened for you, Kevin.
I was parked.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah,
It was a lot of fun.
Kevin was our first guest.
It was super fun. I absolutely loved that.
And for everybody, I'm Joe Compton. I run this beautiful place called Go Indie Now, and it wouldn't be possible without all of you. So thank you so much for hanging with us and being here and engaging. What an awesome chat room there was tonight, and it was very lively and fun, and great questions, everybody. Thank you so much. And everybody that's in the chat and here on the panel is going to get a nice tweet from me personally, and I'm going to make sure that I get the word out about all of you. So thank you for being here and being a part of Go Indie Now. It's really important, and I'm really happy that you all are part of it. It warms my heart. And I am also an author. My book is Amongst the Killing, if you're interested. It's a crime thriller. But that's it, everybody. You know, as Christy so eloquently put it, it's always time to go indie now. We'll see you next time. All right.